Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster, and in this time of pandemic, I still use the same opening line that I'm going to bring you an important person from Stoughton who is going to be discussing important things. So welcome once again to Community Forum. My guest today is no stranger to being involved in Stoughton in so many different ways. But just in case you haven't had the pleasure to meet my guest for today, let me just tell you a little bit about him so that you have a sense of who he is. He is not only a successful entrepreneur, developer, professor, personal coach, a triathlon participant, a public speaker, a local talk show host, a volunteer for local charities. But I consider the most important thing about my guest, is that he is my dear friend. I'd like to welcome to the program none other than Steve Kelley. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, in terms of fine, it's the one your mother wrote. We love those in terms of when our mothers, they just love us to death, and we do that. And the unfortunate part is that we never mention the dads, and they're the ones out there throwing the football around with us. But hey, when you go in there, you say, when you get an award in sports, when you say, "Hi, Mom," and so
yeah,
that's just how it works. So I'm just going to follow what has been the trend. We're old enough to recognize that, Steve. Okay. Steve, it's great. Not only are you a dear friend, but you also a fellow host on Community Forum. We've done some previous programs, certainly on your prolific writing, and I want to talk to folks about that before we get into your current book. As you know, and some of our viewing audience might recall, one of your earlier books was along with your granddaughter Ellie, the fox who sneezed. That yes. We had her on and did a show on that. I think maybe in 2018 or so. And that was just great. And I have that sitting in my library, my signed copy. I revere it. And then you did Break the Curse, a template for change. And I want to talk about the 10 factors that people should consider in their life to effectuate a change. I want you to elaborate on that before we get into your new book. And then we'll talk about your new book in a moment. I want to leave folks in suspense. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, and as I mentioned with Break the Curse, it was the 10 easy steps to reverse hardship. That's how you defined it. And I just want to mention, as I did not, I want to be respectful here. Steve lives in Stoughton with his wife Susan, his two sons, and his and he has all of his great grandchildren here. So, Steve, welcome. So let's start with you're such a prolific writer, and I think there's more than 3 books that you have. And so let's first start with your themes in the books, other than of the fox who sneezed, is trying to educate people who may be going through some type of crisis. And I don't know to what extent you want to go into your own personal life, but I suspect we can because you've done that in your books. So let's talk about that. Let's tell our viewing audience what has motivated you to do this and to focus upon things which affect your life.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Joe. And I thank the audience for watching, by the way. It's great to have people interested. And so let me suggest that I didn't have that perfect upbringing that I respect and think is wonderful, that many people get. And on the flip side, many people don't get. And I wrote the book for the people who perhaps don't have that sort of wonderful start. And it's my hope that you can overcome that lack of a wonderful start. And I wrote Break the Curse so that people could see how I did it. I think the first step is to understand framing. And framing, you're very good at it yourself, Joe, is just sort of creating a playing field that reflects reality in a good way. And so this idea of understanding how you frame everything is important. And I start the book, Break the Curse, by saying, when you see an aquarium, what do you see? Do you see beautiful wildlife, beautiful fish with colorful, fins and things like that? Or do you see animals trapped in an environment that wasn't of their choosing? And those are 2 significantly different frames. And it exposes people to say, oh, wait a minute, that shows your bias, your intention, your perceptions, and your understanding, and how you're conveying that communication to other people. So that was the point of the book, was to get people to know that they were either subconsciously or consciously framing issues, and to get that recognition within themselves, and then to be able to step from there to the next steps of, finding a mentor, taking care of your body, doing all the things that are going to make you more successful, building your karma, knowing that, like, I do a lot of mountain biking, and every time I go on a trail, I pick up trees, move trees, branches, so that the next person doesn't get them caught in their derailleur or things like that. So I go through that, as well as finding your fit in life. I think it's a lot easier to be successful in life if you do what's natural to you. And I try to encourage people to find their inner self, their inner peace, and then follow that trail, and that they will have a much greater chance for success. So, and then I jump from there to asking them to become a leader. And once you sort of straighten your own path out, and it's not always easy, there's some fallbacks, but once you kind of get on that path, it's time for you to look to others and to try to lead. So that's a little quick review of Break the Curse.
Well, I'm going to have us drill down a little bit deeper, because I really want this, professor, I want this to be an educational moment as well, because I think it's a teachable moment for folks. But I want to first quote, I do my research. And so there, I went and looked at something that was mentioned in wickedlocal.com. And it says, Kelley wants you to learn how to be a genius and a hero of your own life through his 10 easy to understand steps to reverse hardship and restart your life. I'm not going to take you to the quiz, and I'm sure you probably know this right at hand, but since I've done the homework, I might as well, professor, I always like to show the professor that I'm just one of those very intent and smart students. I want to show you that I did my homework. I'm not going to test the professor. That's not a good thing to do. You don't get A's by doing that. So I want to start the first one. The first one was think like a genius.
Yes. And think like a genius is what I just sort of explained about framing. It starts with being able to interpret the reality that's facing you, and then being able to communicate it well. So that's people who think like a genius. They see things as they are, not as they want to see them.
Set powerful goals and keep them.
Yeah. So if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there. And I think it's very important that you understand that goals are sort of the whole pathway of your life. You really need, it's the roadmap for your life, and you need to set goals. A quick example, we have a new book coming out, and we have a wonderful, actually a Stoughton person, Vanessa Lundy, that's taking over our social media. And she's from Stoughton and Brockton, and she's going to set goals for us about how many followers we'll have for Cancer Rest in Peace. And so we set goals for almost everything we do, and it really is helpful.
Find mentors.
Find mentors. So this is something that somebody who's not born into an area that there's a lot of people they can look up to. It's important that you break free from that you step outside of yourself and find ways. Anyways, my mentors came to me through going back to college, and I just hit it off with a particular professor, Dr. Edmund Ostrander, and his wife, both PhD professors. And they sort of grabbed both my ears and pulled me up. And so and I tell that story in the book about how I found my mentors, or they found me, I'm not sure. But that made a huge difference in my life. And I think it'll make a huge difference for the audience to start tuning yourself in. And one of the tricks for that is volunteer, by the way. When you volunteer, you start to see people, like-minded people, and then you'll know that there's somebody there that's a mentor. And people love to get asked, by the way, to be a mentor. You love to be thought of as, maybe I can be a role model. And then so ask somebody that you see and that you elevate in your life, and then they'll help you. So that's very important to find a mentor.
What's interesting, Steve, I just did that this morning with what I call my adopted daughter. She's in Atlanta. She just graduated recently from Clark University and is working for Deloitte Consulting. And I have a dear niece down there, and I call her my birthday niece, where she's born on my birthday. And a dear friend of mine is like a brother. So I just sent that email this morning and said, hey, I like you. I didn't use mentor because I wanted to soften. I wanted you to give some guidance to her. And then I wrote to two persons who serve on my board with me at the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts, who are managers in Deloitte. They're here in Massachusetts, and said, since your colleagues, I want you to give guidance to my adopted daughter. So I'm following that principle that you have just stated by the actions that I've just taken this morning. And I strongly believe I mentor a lot of people, as you do, and and also have mentors. So I think that's, to me, that's one which I put bold circles around, finding a mentor. That's how you make it in this world. You don't make it on your own.
That's so humble and so true, Joe. Thank you.
Take care of your body.
Yes, I think that's one that a lot of people find easy to skip, and we can't skip it. You have to find ways. It could be a treadmill. It could be walks in nature. For me, it's bicycling. It could be swimming. It could be dancing. Whatever you choose, be active. And my recovery from cancer centered around that. My teams that I developed, and it was really all about controlling my body, getting my body back in shape, and slowly whittling down my weight, which I'm still not 100% there. But yeah, you have to maintain your body. It's extremely important.
Resist temptations.
That's one of my favorites because it wasn't originally included. And I have a police officer friend who read the initial manuscript and said, you're missing something, Steve. And I said, really, what am I missing? He says, what about temptation? You didn't address it. He said, everybody is all about the good things that they want to do, but how do they resist temptation? And I offer a few tips in the book. And, actually sort of threading through all of the tips is make today amazing. Just every day, do something that makes today amazing. This morning, I got up early, took pictures of the sunrise, and that just helped to make today amazing. So, that's part of it.
Build karma.
Yeah, build karma. We just touched on about how when I'm on the trails, I pick things up. Virtually every day, I do something that I don't have to do. Maybe nobody sees me do it, but I just do it. I try to do something. It could be making a kind gesture to somebody. Maybe just you come to a traffic four-way stop and you let the other guy go first, and you say, "Okay, come on, go ahead through." And they smile, they move, and there's no more acknowledgement than that. But it's a little piece of karma. So
it's always nice when you do that and the person puts their hand up and thank you for it, or you allow the person across the street. And so many folks do not. And I try not to get enraged when you do an act of kindness. I have to, I do work at it, and I just say, well, it's just, I just put my karma comes and said that's on them, that they don't know or haven't been taught to say thank you when a kind act is done. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. And that is a great example of that. Find your fit.
One more for you, Joe. This piece of karma. I really try to respect the people that give me a hard time in life. I want to make every person in my life that gives me a hard time a teacher. They're teaching me something, and that builds my karma. So instead of them, I use the word, used the word enraged, and it's easy for all of us. I did a little of that this morning because somebody moved something that I wanted in one spot. I was like, why did they move it? I was like, just like, ugh. But they're teaching me something. And I think that learning that everybody that crosses you is teaching you something is part of your part of a really good karma set of skills.
Yeah. And you know what? You got to focus on a person. So I usually use my wife Phyllis for that because her personality is clearly different from mine in the sense of that.
You're so unusual, Joe.
Oh yeah. She's a Virgo and she'll study things and think about it. And I'm an Aries and I'm off to the races. But I'm going to add you to that list. I'm going to think about that person who doesn't wave the hand and say thank you when I let them go. And I'm going to say, this is called the Steve Kelley moment. So I'm going to assign that to you.
That's so wonderful.
Find your fit.
Yeah. So, and I think this is something very hard to do if you haven't been groomed already by somebody. If you're sort of really feeling alone, and everybody in this pandemic age, everybody's feeling alone at some point. And I think that finding your fit it's critical that you if you're not good with numbers, don't be an accountant, for crying out loud. I mean, think about it. That's just not your thing. So find a fit. My wife has brittle bones, right? She really does. As she's gotten older, that I think a lot of ladies have brittle bones. She shouldn't be out swinging a hammer. It's just not good for her, and putting herself in that exposure. So I guess all of the kind of things that that you're natural at, help you be natural at that stuff. And not that you shouldn't try new stuff. I think everybody should, but there is a sense that you can be most successful where you're natural. And then I like to have that, maybe the 20% filler is all the new things. I'll give you a quick example on the new things. Now I eat left-handed, even though I'm a righty, because I keep trying to get those neural pathways to develop. So I'm not always doing things that I'm comfortable with, not always like, oh, I'm good at this, therefore I'll do that. I'm actually trying to reverse that a lot, but still finding your fit is important.
Stabilize and have fun.
Yeah. So we get all caught up with setting goals and following through and doing all this stuff. And I think we need to be, but there's this little reverse piece that have some fun, like make everything fun. I think I'm particularly good at laughing at myself. Okay. I do something stupid and I know it's stupid and I look at myself and I go, no, I can get mad at myself. I can just laugh. I can say, boy, that was stupid. So I kind of feel that finding that place where you can have fun at every step is critical to not getting enraged at every moment. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, no, that was pretty dumb of me. So I just kind of learned to laugh better at myself. So that.
And the last one is become a leader.
Yes. So becoming a leader, it is last because all the other things have to be done first. And I think we're maybe a negative of me, but we're seeing a time now where people haven't perfected themselves and they're trying to lead. And that's unfortunate. And I'm hoping that we can reverse that in life by having people get to know themselves better, follow steps like mine or somebody else who's got great steps, and then reach out to try to lead. So, yeah.
So the theme that I see throughout all of your prolific writing is you use your life experiences to tell the story. And, I learned that from another person who I worked with, the former governor, Michael Dukakis, when we used to prepare, briefings for him and all. And he would take his personal experiences to deliver the particular point. And I think it's more powerful when you use yourself as the example. And, you and I now share a particular family or club or fraternity that we're in, and that we're both cancer survivors.
Yes.
And I want to talk about your latest iteration here, and that is your new book, which I'm so proud of. And you honored me by asking me to do a testimonial in it, and I cherish that not only from the standpoint of you as a friend, but as a great author. And I felt so honored to be able to do that. And I did have an opportunity to read some of the chapters. But let's introduce our audience to your new book, Cancer RIP, The Ultimate Battle, or The Ultimate Fight. I know that you were working with several titles, and I believe this is the ultimate one that you decided on. So let's talk about your reason for creating this book, for writing this book, publishing it, and then we're going to walk through from your diagnosis to your treatment, then your recovery. So I'm going to be quiet and let you run with it.
Well, please feel free to interject and make me more lively. But so let me start with, and if Roy, if you can pull that cover back up, I just want to point out something to the audience, and we'll give Roy just a second. The cover shows you that, in case Roy is just having trouble, I'll just tell you what it shows. It shows you in the background the brain scan that enabled the doctors to diagnose me. And very clearly on that cover, you're going to see a tumor the size of about an avocado. And that was what we found out when I was first taken to the hospital down in Weymouth, South Shore Hospital, and then taken into Dana-Farber's clinic at Brigham and Women's. And I can't tell you like how wonderful well, it wasn't wonderful in the beginning. How wonderful the
I'm just going to
recovery.
say, I'm just going to see, Roy, if you can try to bring back up the cover, that would be great. Because I think, Steve, as you're talking about it, I think it would be great to have the cover showing. I hope that Roy can bring it back.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
as you said, the show will go on.
yeah.
So
The show will roll.
why don't
Yeah,
you go ahead?
yeah. So you the diagnosis is a tough one, by the way. I have something called central nervous system lymphoma, and that's a cancer that originates in the brain. It's very unique. Only 3 people in a million get it, and very few survive. So it has a sort of a prognosis that isn't beautiful. And I consider it. Oh, there you go. There's our picture. If you look at the left-hand side top, you'll see a cloud that with a little kind of a hook right behind the C in cancer. And that was the size of my tumor when it was first discovered. And you can see my mountain biking in the background down below, which is nice, and the title, Cancer, Rest in Peace. So thank you, Roy, for getting that up. And we're hoping that our audience will buy the book, Cancer, Rest in Peace. This week, the website will go up. We're published by One Stop Publishing, which is another small story that I can share with you, Joe, which is a publishing company I started. And as a result of having like a not perfect experience with self-publishing, I ended up gathering a team of freelancers, and we now have a 10-person team that's ready to produce for authors wonderful books. So,
Well, that's interesting because that was something you had talked about when we did Break the Curse, because you had assembled a team around that, and I can recall. So congratulations. I saw that when I went online.
yep.
So just for, let's do a little self-promotion here. How would one acquire the book? I'm going to say that again, but let's say it now. How would one go on and to get it? Do they go to Amazon? Do they go to One Stop Shopping? I know I Googled and I Steve Kelley, the author in Stoughton, and I got all the information, but tell one how they could obtain the book or books.
Okay. So first off, you guys are like so on top of things. You're just early of our actual publishing our website, which I have a Zoom at 4:00 with the whole team. We are ready to push that ahead this week. So you'll be able to go to onestoppublishing.com and you'll be able to pick on any of the books, The Fox Who Sneezed, Break the Curse, Cancer, Rest in Peace, and eventually have a little a front running of the new book, which will be coming out, which is Huber's Rest in Peace, by the way. So right now, tentative title, but we're pretty strong on that. OneStopPublishing.com will be up for the audience within a week. So, and I'm not sure when we'll run this particular piece anyway, so it might just be perfect to say that, OneStopPublishing.com. And you'll be able to pull down and order all of the books. And you'll also, right now you can order Break the Curse and The Fox Who Sneezed on Amazon. By the time we publish this interview, you'll also be able to get Cancer, Rest in Peace on Amazon and also from our own personal One Stop Publishing site. So thank you.
So let's come, back to.
By the way, let me explain the noise in the background. My office is right at the train station here in Stoughton. And
in charge of, we always want to promote our locale, so therefore any Stoughtonites will definitely know exactly where you're
noise.
sitting. But let's go back to Cancer, RIP, The Ultimate Fight. Let's start to bring up the pictures to why don't you walk us through from your diagnosis to your recovery? I know we have a number of slides, and okay, the first slide is dealing with your MRIs on August 21st, 2018.
Yeah, I think that I think the slide that he just put up was methotrexate. And for those of you going through cancer, you probably know this chemical. Methotrexate is a chemotherapy treatment. And Roy, that's what you just had up. But I'll talk about each one as they come up. So Roy, whichever one you put up, we'll run with it. So, but the scans actually were on the cover. So the scans of my brain tumor. But I'm not quite seeing what Roy's having, so we're going to be patient. Let's see, he's got something coming up. There we go. There's the scans. So on the right-hand side, there's a pretty plump tumor for you to view. And that's what a brain tumor looks like, or at least in my case, it was a significant sized tumor. And what's brilliantly wonderful is on the left side is after treatment of about I think 4 months, we had shrunk with the wonderful help of Dana-Farber's Cancer Institute. We found a way to reduce the tumor. So that's kind of a brilliant thing. And I want to, if I could, I'll use this quick opportunity to tell people that how I recovered was with my teams. I had 5 teams. And so the first, and Joe, you'll recognize this, was my family. And that team of people around me who brought karma into my life.
Right.
And the second team was friends, and friends like you, friends like Roy, and just a whole group of friends who I was able to draw upon and with through the process of learning about cancer and dealing with cancer. So I family, friends, and then I had a medical team at Dana-Farber that is second to none. And in fact, a world-renowned doctor, Dr. Lakshmi Nayak, who is focused not exclusively, but she's very importantly dedicated herself to CNS, central nervous system lymphoma, and she wrote the foreword for Cancer Rest in Peace. So she led the teams that helped me from a medical perspective. So my first team, family; second team, friends; third team, medical; fourth team's bikers. So my whole mountain biking groups that allowed me to get sick and stayed with me, and then to help me recover. And then my last team is my book team, which I'm producing books, and I have a wonderful group of editors and proofreaders, copy editors, a publicist, all different people that have joined me to produce these books, and we're hoping to attract other authors to help them produce their dreams, to kind of release their dreams from their own brains into the world.
Well, Steve, I'm going to keep us moving along, because if I run over, as I did with a show earlier with Roy, I'm going to have me a problem here.
Okay, so
I'm not sure which one of the
this screen
one is here. So
methotrexate. So
you tell me which one of the, because that wasn't, is that the second one? Is that the second one or no?
I'm not sure if it's the second one. I think it is, but that's methotrexate in that.
Yes, that's the second one. He's right on cue. I just don't leave it up there, Roy. Don't switch back to us. Let him. He can talk it through what the picture's up there. So if you could bring number 2 back, that would be great.
Yeah, and so that is something that I had to get used to. I had a stem cell transplant, and that those transfusions occur by the chemicals that they input. They had to use a lot of chemicals to transfer through to my blood-brain barrier. That's kind of a fancy BBB for a fancy name for the sac that encompasses our brains. And my tumor's inside that sac, so that the chemotherapy treatments were very specialized. They had to pick certain chemicals that could go through, permeate that blood-brain barrier, and that's something you're going to have to get used to if you get CNS lymphoma, and maybe for other different cancers that require stem cell transplant.
And Roy, I'm going to ask that if you stay with the pictures, you can just stay up and he can talk through them, and that way you can just go from one to the other, et cetera, as opposed to switching back and forth. That'll probably be a better way for us to proceed. So let's bring up slide number 3, if you would.
And while we're waiting for that, I think one of the hardest things to get used to was that I wasn't used to being unhealthy. It was a big change. And I think that all of us, when we get that diagnosis, that you have to overcome that shock in some way or another. I think I don't know what you did, Joe, to do that, but I think I just repelled it. And I have a funny thing that I share in the book. Oh, and here's one way to repel it, by the way. So when I was in the hospital, my grandchildren came to visit me, and I jumped out of bed and said, "You guys, try out the bed, see what you think." And we had fun. And you'll notice on the bedside counter there is the cover for The Fox Who Sneezed, and
that's right.
is my granddaughter.
And that's Ellie, your granddaughter, there. And who's the little guy?
And that's my grandson D3. And both those people were part of my family team that they came to see me, and they've just been, a real source of inspiration and fun. We, at one point in the hospital, we took the 3 pedestal, the bag hanging pedestal that was on wheels, and we went for a walk, and we started to run in the corridors, and we got yelled at by the doctors, "Don't run." and we would say like, not running, not running, but we were dancing around the hallways as fast as I could with the kids.
We, we're going to skip a few of the slides, and I'm going to give Roy an opportunity in order to do that because I don't want us to run out of the time because I want to hear more from you on there, and you can determine which ones you got.
Yeah, I'll take
which,
a few.
if you want to. I was going to skip to the facial swelling because it was just
Oh, let's do
interesting.
that. That's fun.
Because that's so poignant in its presentation, and it just shows. I know the other ones we're talking about. That's number. That's number.
Okay,
Yes.
let's go to this one.
Okay. Well, this one here is. I'm not sure. That's. Is that the no side effects one?
Yeah, my doctors promised me no side effects, and
Yeah.
so the very next day I went out to the porch where I was, and I sent them a picture to question them. Was this what you were talking about? And that's what happened to me. So that's an example of when you have no side effects. So you can't always listen to your medical team, even though my medical team was great. I'm not sure I could listen to everything they told me.
Roy is trying to pull that one up. Why don't you just talk a little bit about the effects of, I presume it was the medication on you. So why don't you talk about that a bit, Steve?
Yeah, sure. Well,
so as he tries to bring up facial swelling.
Sure. What he's bringing up should be a picture of me in sort of my bodysuit of Kepivance. So Kepivance was a drug that they used to try and cut down on the swelling, on the mouth sores that I had. And unfortunately, it had a side effect of making me look like the Hulk, only in pink. So,
well, that's interesting that you say that because when I looked at this picture, that's exactly what came to mind. All us Hulkanites, have watched the program, and I said that's exactly what came to mind.
Yeah, so that's what my face turned to, and and I think, frankly, I was thankful I was a man at this point. I just think women that I know take such better pride in their appearance than I usually do. So everything from regular skin to clothing. That I was thankful that I didn't have to look like this. If I were a woman, I'd be horrified. But myself, I just sort of laughed it off and took some pictures. Thought you guys might enjoy seeing a Kepivance face.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a lot of things. And like I said, earlier, just who you are. You have used your own life experiences and your various trials in order to bring the story to life. And you've done that so well and so explicitly. But let's talk about, we all know that those treatments have an impact on people lose their hair.
Oh yeah.
Particularly in terms of cancer. And so here, I'm not sure which one of the characters that I would go to. It could be Luther. It could be Luther in one of them, but I'm not sure. Maybe you have another character in mind, but when I saw this, I said, okay.
Yeah. There you go. So yes, I did lose my hair. I lost, by the way, I think a little bit unusual. I lost all my fingernails and toenails as well. So everything fell out. I was in very severe treatments. They were trying to kill all of the cancer at anywhere that it might be in my body. And it did not only cause my hair to fall out, but it also caused a lot of problems with my tongue. It started to come apart. So it was like, I'm being gross now, I apologize. But it can be very hard for you. My son is a very famous, will be very famous quote. I love the quote. He said, "Dad, don't worry, they can't kill you. You're like a cockroach." Yeah, I love that. I actually love that comment, that I just won't be killed. So I tell people, don't worry about me. I'm like a cockroach. Can't kill me.
Well, the next slide I'm going to ask Roy to bring up is what I call, as a Christian, we'd call renewal. In fact, Roy, I'm going to, I'm going to skip this one here. And since we have it up, why don't you talk about this one? Because this is Loma on the Roof. But the one I want you to pull up next, Roy, would be the SK Ready for Winter ride, because I want to talk about the renewal. But this is a renewal as well. I'm not sure at what stage. This seemed to be before some of the effects on your body were, because when you did this roof, correct?
I had already had some treatments, and it was when I first got out of the hospital, and I started right away going back on the roof. I just said, I'm not going to let this thing beat me. So that's it. I just started. I went right up on the roof. We were stripping the roof here, and that's something that I just pride myself in. I'm just going to work through everything.
And Roy, but when I talk about the renewal, and you said earlier you were triathlete, you know, if when Roy is ready, he can bring up the one which it says "ready for winter ride," because you even had talked about my coming on mountain biking with you, and I told you I'm a scaredy cat, and so therefore I haven't done it in all these many years. But there you are, dressed to the nines, looking handsome in your outfit. Talk about, uh, I call this is my picture of renewal.
Well, that's a wonderful way to put it. Yes, so I was able to get right back to biking as soon as I could. In the beginning, I could only go for 5 minutes, and I had to come back home, so I could only get out of the driveway. After stem cell transplant, it really took my strength away. But over time, I just kept building up, and you can see I had a mask on. And by the way, this was pre-pandemic. This picture, I had to keep a mask on at all times because my
Immune system.
defenses, yeah, my immune system was destroyed by the chemotherapy. In fact, my funny, not maybe not funny, I don't know, my white blood cell count during the stem cell transplant went from a typical of 10,000 for all of us to 10, just 10 white blood cells in my body. So upon being released, I had to keep masked all the time. So I understood masking way before everybody else did, or except for maybe other cancer people. But yeah, I had to keep masked up for everything. But I was determined to get to use my physicality to get my brain to function better, because that, in my case, probably the biggest disruption with a brain tumor was that my neural pathways had been destroyed. I had started to go blind. I couldn't remember anything. In fact, one of the stories I tell in the book is that I got up in the middle of the night and I couldn't find the bathroom. It took me 5 minutes of walking around my own house. It was only 8 feet away, and I ended up just feeling the walls until I finally found the bathroom. So yeah, it had a very severe impact on my ability to think, to map, and things like that.
So you talked about earlier in the sense of the camaraderie that brought you through. And as a Christian, I started to get the spiritual take of that as to how our relationships can help us get through adversity. And you talked about your family, you talked about your friends, you talked about your medical team, you talked about your fellow employees, and you made specific mention. And I know that family is so much in your life, as I talked about with you, with Susan and your sons and your grandchildren. And this is typical. So let's introduce the lovely family here, that so that all of our viewing audience knows the Steve Kelley family so well. And I see it looks like you were at a restaurant or outside a restaurant someplace. But in any event, why don't you walk us through who these lovely people are? Starting with, I think I've gotten to know her. Isn't that Ellie on the far left to my left?
Actually, no, but that is a picture that almost would have done that. So this is a very old picture. It's outside a restaurant in St. Martin where I had a family vacation, and
Okay.
And it shows my grandchildren Cam and Chloe, who are now 19, down below.
Wow.
They were twins, and then it also shows Michelle and Dave on the left, who are my living mates now. We have a multi-generational home, and Elle is their child, but wasn't yet born in this picture. So it's an older picture. And my son is on the far right, Philip. My other son, with his eyes slightly closed, is beside Phil's wife. My wife is in the yellow, and then I'm in the background. So we have always cherished family, and it was a good thing I did.
Well, Steve, first and foremost, I just can't say how much I appreciate you and your ability to take your own life experiences and to to lay them bare and to let folks come into your situation to understand exactly how you can overcome adversity. I mean, that takes a lot. That's a strong person and a sensitive person and a Christian person who's able to do that, because not everyone can talk about it. Now, I, like you, have taken my illness. I said that we are in that fraternity because, yeah, I'm a cancer survivor, prostate cancer. I talk about it. You know that I lost a son through suicide, and I stay much in terms of dealing with mental illness and suicide. In fact, right after this program, I'm doing one on that particular issue with the Samaritans and with the National Alliance for Mental Illness and NAMI. So we take our life experiences to helpfully provide some comfort and education to others. Let's talk about it from the, beyond, that, but I want us to do two things. I want us to once again tell folks how they can acquire any of your books. And then I'd like you to talk about it because you're a professor. I introduce you as a professor, an author, a public speaker, a mentor. Let's envelop the full genre of who Steve Kelley is, and let's take a moment to talk about you, Steve Kelley, the person. So first, start with telling people how they can acquire your books, and then let's talk about Steve Kelley, the person, Steve Kelley, the man, Steve Kelley, my friend.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm not sure I like such a centered view.
I know, but I'm putting you on the spot. My show this time, when you get me on yours, you can, I'll have to comply, but you're on mine today.
Oh, Joe, you're killing me. Thank you. Thank you. OneStopPublishing.com, you're going to be able to get the books and also the newer books that we're also publishing. So thank you for that. I think for myself, I think I consider myself a soldier, a worker. Life starts with going to work every day and don't ever not. I just think that I bet dollars to donuts that that's one of the prescriptions for us to get out of the pandemic era that we're in is for people to go to work and to value that work. If you're a custodian, if you're a roofer, if you're a cider, you're a steel worker, you're a cook, you're a waitress, whatever you're doing is really to value yourself and value that contribution to what we need in society. And I think that I am a worker first. If you had to meet me, I'm very, very simple. I work every day. I work on my body, like doing my mountain biking. That takes work. I do my writing. It takes work. I email like so prolifically. You use the word prolific. I email. I communicate regularly with friends, and they respond. I have a friend. He's a Stoughton guy, Vinny, and Anthony Costanzo, Vinny's Paving, and he the other day I went out with him on a quick mountain bike ride, and he asked me about my thoughts about how the economy is going to do, and I feel like there's going to be a swing that we all have to be aware of, and I told him about some bank issues that he needs to look at, and the next day he sent a fruit basket to my house. I mean, these are friends that just that's like a boyfriend girlfriend thing. He'll probably be mad at me for saying this, but it's like he was like, how nice can you be just because I shared what I think is going to help him on the economy, and then he's just so nice. And so I think that authentic people who work hard at their friendships, that's the point, is what I'm about.
Well, it's and again, you have lived that. See, some people just talk the talk, some people walk the walk. And I've observed over the years. I've been in Stoughton now 22 years, and I would say our friendship blossomed as a result of Roy Cohen, the executive producer, because we really met on at SMAC. That's where we met, and our friendship blossomed from there. And I'm so pleased with Roy for being the one that brought us in terms of together. But as I think about you, I think about not only through your writings, but what you've done in the town of Stoughton. So, let's see, again, you don't want to focus on you, but let's talk about you. I do my homework, and I think the building that your office is in and what you have at Trackside wasn't that called the Corcoran building at some point in time? Like I said, I try to do my homework. Let's talk about how you did that, because you talked about bringing your multi-generational family, helping folks to with your 10 steps, and the friend that you just spoke of that you gave some advice to you, which was you felt it as being nothing, you were just being Steve Kelley. Let's talk about what you've done for the town of Stoughton. So always Stoughtonites ought to be thankful. I know I am. When I park at Trackside, I'm thankful of that. haven't done it in about a year because I haven't really gone into Boston. But nonetheless, let's talk about what you've established here and some of the ideas that you brought even in uh, to the government here, right here in Stoughton.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Not everybody agrees that I'm good for Stoughton, by the way, just for starters. There are many people that are arguing that. But I believe that what I tried to do, the old Corcoran Shoe Factory, they made the paratrooper boots for World War II, by the way. So it's a very, and amongst other shoe products. So maybe they were a throwover from Brockton's shoe industry. And what I did is I tried to take a decrepit old factory, and we ended up pouring over $1 million, more than that, quite a bit more, into the property. But we tried to make it a community center, and it is filled with all of the things that we all do. You know, we have restaurants, we have offices, we have lawyers, accountants, website developers, everything that you can think of and do. Those are the people that make the village of the community that's here at the Trackside Plaza. And I think that's what we're about here. We want to reflect what the community is and can be. So that's if I could contain my contribution, you know, coming to work every day and being very open, very flexible to any and all. And doesn't matter your religion, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your sex. We're open. We're very flexible, and we want to participate in that community and create that community.
Yeah, I'm going to just through this process just to ask Roy to give me a time check because he keeps me in line, and I want to make sure that I always keep Roy Cohen happy. So I just wanted to make sure and that I don't go over on my time. I know I'm not close right now, but I want to make sure I have the exact time today. But let's talk about a few of the things. You know, again, I'm a I am a Steve Kelley acolyte. As they say in the Catholic religion, I'm one of your acolytes. So let's talk about, because I remember when you had the little house. I remember when you talked about what could happen in Stoughton Center. So let's go back and do some history, because these are things that we've talked about over the past couple of years. And so let's bring some remembrance back to the viewing audience of some of the great ideas and the things that you brought, because it was Cecil Winter, my wife and I came by and looked at the little house, and it was so fascinating. And then you and I talked about what could happen as far as Stoughton and as far as a parking garage and other things. So let's chat about that for a little bit.
Sure. So what you're referring to about the Little House was we ended up hosting a festival at our parking lot for little houses, which are a phenomenon and a trend, is for people to get into homes that are smaller. I mean, that's that we're not using so much space. And one of the ways that reflected in my own personal life was converting my home to a multi-generational home with two sides, so that we could invite our family to live on one side and have a joint room with a piano, and we could chat and pass through, and then the other side for the other family. So it made our house sort of like a responsive to smaller space. So I think, by the way, here's something that I think the audience might find interesting. I'm going to project ahead 1,000 years, and I think we're all going to be looked at quite poorly, because they're going to say that we had giant homes that we didn't need to heat, giant schools that we didn't need to offer, single time settings. Back in the day, you had a morning shift and a night shift and an afternoon shift. So you wouldn't need so many schools if you used them better. You wouldn't need such big houses if you shared them more. So you're going to cut down X amount of trees to build X amount of houses, and the space that you're heating and the products that you're using are too significant. I think they're going to look back at us 1,000 years from now and say that we were wasteful. So I'm very appreciative of the green theme that sort of the people that are, I don't know if it's woke, because I'm sure that gets misused a lot, but of people that have sort of awakened themselves to, that we need to take better, what's the word I'm looking for, Joe?
Better stock.
Better care. Take better care. Yeah. Of our environment and the resources that we have, which are more limited than what we've been trained to think. So I think we want to look back. We want to change our generational views so that 1,000 years from now, they're not going to look back and say that's the most wasteful generation, or that's the most wasteful century. or pair of centuries that have been evolved, and we have to also take some understanding for that. Like, we're all a product of our environment, and I don't think it's appropriate to be like chastising everybody, but rather to be suggesting, like, can we do better and how might we do so?
Well, we have a few more minutes in here. I've gotten the high sign from Roy, so thank you very much, Roy. I'm watching the clock for sure. But let's talk about, because your business is central to Stoughton Center. They're not only central, but essential to Stoughton Center. You provide parking for those of us additional parking for those of us who might use the commuter rail. You have, as you mentioned, the different businesses that are there, and you've had some thoughts about what might be done to improve Stoughton Center and its immediate environment. So, in a few minutes that we have, can we talk a little bit about your thinking in that regard?
Sure. So first off, I was a member of the Master Plan Committee for Stoughton for a number of years, and I actually presented a plan for how the center could be revitalized and how we could use the center better and try to eliminate parking space by creating parking garages. In other words, in order to park an X number of cars, you're expanding over the land considerably. But if you stack that parking up, obviously you free up that land for open space and for people to gather and for a community to develop. So that's sort of a thought that I have, is that we better use our center as a gathering place. And how do you, what's comfortable about a gathering space? Certainly not blacktop, not paving. It's comfortable when you have greenery and trees and places that fountains and things that would be a real attraction. And I think I'd love for Stoughton to lead the way in making a center that is an attraction, that isn't, it makes people want to come. We want to be something that people will come to, maybe bring their children from Taunton, from Boston, from Roslindale, come to Stoughton Center. And so that's sort of the vision I have for Stoughton Center is to recreate it, turn the train station into a museum, for instance, and have art there and things like that. So maybe take our theater and really renovate it, but honor the past of that's what theaters used to look like. And so that's sort of my dream, would be to recreate, like, in an honorable way, but also a renewable way, all of Stoughton Center, and then make that a draw for everybody to come. Like I use the example of the Poconos, which are the honeymoon capital of the world. Well, the Poconos are just mountains. They don't know that they're the honeymoon capital of the world. That happened because some astute entrepreneur started shaping his beds as hearts. And that drew people to come to the Poconos as the sweetheart place, the honeymoon capital of the world. So what can Stoughton do is the question that I'm posing, that will make Stoughton an attractive place.
Well, I think your musing about that issue certainly, hopefully, will have some impact. I know Stoughton now owns the depot, and they're trying to decide what they want to do with the depot. I know there's been much discussion led by several folks, but particularly John Stagnoni, with regards to the theater. We've done some redesign with the good work of Mark Tisdale, the town engineer, as far as some of the traffic or transportation alignment in the square. And there's even been discussion about what to happen if we were to move the post office out and just make it such, at least the parking of the vehicles and land. I represent developers in Boston around development. All of what you're talking about are all potential development opportunities that could take place in Stoughton. But I'm looking at the clock and my time is drawing nigh, and I want to definitely keep Roy Cohen happy. Steve, as always, congratulations. Before I let you go, you're a prolific writer. You're a dear friend. I like the way that you use your own circumstances to educate people. Let's end once again to tell folks how they can get your book. But before I have you do that, I want to thank Roy Cohen, the executive producer of this program, Mike Hammond, who is the general manager of Stoughton Media Access Corporation, and others who help put Community Forum on the map as a program for SMAC. But I want you to end with telling folks how they can acquire your book. So let's do that. I think there's time for it.
All right. Well, first off, I want to thank you, Joe. I don't think a person could get a better interviewer than you. Thank you so much to allow that. I also want to thank the viewers for watching. I like that we pointed out that the people that are behind the scenes on the master plan have been working hard, trying to make Stoughton better. Mark Tisdale, all of those people that are just working hard behind the scenes, including the members themselves who are volunteers. So thank you to all of them. You can get the book, onestoppublishing.com, and you'll be able to get The Fox Who Sneezed, Break the Curse, also Cancer, Rest in Peace.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and God bless.